Hello everybody, this is Lady Kaylah here, and today I'm going to do a video on discussing racism and sexism. And I typically do this for fantasy literature, medieval fantasy literature to be exact, and I typically talk mostly about racism and sexism, but you can also include like ageism, classism, so on and so forth in here as well. And so the way I talk is going to sound like I'm talking about very specific things, but I can actually broaden them out to more things. But for the most part, I mostly talk about these things, so I'm going to focus on them and say racist and sexist a lot, and I'm going to say medieval fantasy a lot. So first of all, I just want to clear some things, because when I do talk about racism and sexism, people automatically have these arguments that have nothing to do with what I'm saying, and they misinterpret, and they put words in my mouth, and they just don't get it at all. And first of all, I'm going to start with setting. People think that just because the setting is based on a certain era or time period and stuff like that, that means that it's okay to be racist and sexist. Now, first of all, I want to say that just because a world has racism and sexism in it, just like our world does, doesn't mean that the piece of literature or the work or whatever is racist and sexist. It just means the world has real problems with real issues, and that's that. That doesn't make it racist and sexist. I hate when people sit there and say that because the world has racist and sexist issues that it's either automatically sexist, which is not, or they think that that's what I mean by saying this piece of work is racist or sexist. They think that I mean because the world has racism and sexism in it, that the piece of work is racist and sexist. That's not what I mean at all. It just means that it has real issues and real problems. That doesn't make it sexist. What makes it sexist or racist is how the writer portrays the people in that world, just because these people have certain roles based on gender, based on color, doesn't mean that it's automatically racist and sexist. It's how they are treated as characters. Are they treated as, inferior, like as in, are they given less character development? Are they like killed off right away? Is the writer, perpetuating racist and sexist ideals through their characters? So it doesn't matter if you have, for instance, a person of color who is a slave in your book, because that's your world. That just so happens to be the racist convention of your world. However, how is that character treated? Are they treated as a stereotype? Are they treated negatively? Not by the other characters, but by the writer. And the same goes for genders. How are they treated? As not by the other characters, because obviously the other characters are going to treat them based on how they are perceived by that world, but how is the writer portraying them? That's the difference. That's what makes the difference between it being racist and sexist and not racist and sexist. So I also have to note, because this happens all the time, but it's based on medieval Europe argument that I hear all the time. And I say medieval Europe specifically because I do medieval fantasy, so that's the one I hear the most. And I have to bring it up. I have to call you guys out on it. People will say all the time, it's based on medieval Europe. That's why there's so much lack of people of color. Bless your souls, because you guys do not know history at all. And I can't blame you fully, because we do get a white perspective of history, But medieval Europe was very much heavily culturally influenced by the world around it. There was much trading, there was much, mingling, there was much going on that was not just white. Medieval Europe is not this magical white island completely uninfluenced by people of color. In fact, it was very, very much the opposite. And there are very many prominent people of color, poets, writers, artists, stuff like that, in medieval Europe who lived in Europe and were uninfluenced in Europe, who were not white. And I know this is not a history lesson video, so I'm not going to sit here and give you people and dates and so on and so forth. So please, I would advise you to go do your own history, from a non-white perspective. It exists. And don't base your history on medieval fantasy. Go get actual history lessons. It's really interesting. It's really cool. And I highly suggest you do it because you really, really, really sound stupid when you say it's based on medieval Europe. That's why there's no people of color. You sound so stupid and ignorant. So, please do that. Thank you. And now that setting it over with, I want to talk about writer, because people are so quick to say, are you saying my favorite writer is racist or sexist? No, I'm not. First of all, just because it's your favorite writer, sorry to say, your favorite writer could very well be racist and sexist. But for the most part, I don't actually research and see if they actually are racist and sexist, and I automatically assume that they're not because I don't go out and research that. But that doesn't mean that they don't do racist and sexist things in their works of art. So people are so quick to say, you're calling my favorite writer racist and sexist. Just, no, that's not what I'm saying. The writer, I want to say, creates his own world. And this kind of ties in with setting, and because so many people are saying, like, it's based off of this era, it's based off of this era. And just because it's based off a certain era still doesn't change the fact that it's the writer's world. The writer is creating this world. That means it's a fantasy. I'm talking mostly about fantasy here. And even I'll include historical fiction. It's a fantasy. It's the writer's manipulating the world. The writer has complete control of the world. So just because it's influenced by certain other aspects, it's still the world that the writer wants. So please stop using it's based on this, it's based on that as an argument. That's not an argument. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it's the writer's world. It's what the writer has created. So please stop using that excuse, because it has everything to do with the writer, nothing to do with the influences that the writer has. Now, when the writer does racist and sexist things, it happens to be, typically conventions of writing and, tropes and stuff like that, are just age old and the writer tends to use and recycle, and it's racist and it's sexist, and half the time they don't mean to do it because a lot of it's rooted in tradition, and it just becomes habitual and stuff like that. It's still not, it still doesn't make it any less racist or sexist, though, at the end of the day. Just because you see it a lot in literature doesn't mean it's any less racist or sexist, like you're saying, because it happens so often that it's okay. That's what your argument is when you tell me things like that. That, all writers do this or whatever. When you use arguments like that, you're just saying because it happens so often and because it's a norm that it's okay. No, it's not. And second of all, because it's so hard for some of you guys to grasp this concept that, just because a writer does something racist or sexist doesn't mean that they are racist or sexist. Let me give you an example. Let's say, for instance, I'm walking down the street and some incident happens to the point where I call someone a derogatory term based on the color of their skin. Does that make me racist? No. I'm not racist because I have nothing against their race. I have nothing, I know that I don't blame their race. I'm just really angry at that one person, and so I used a derogatory term. I'm not racist, though. However, what I did was racist, and just because I'm not racist doesn't mean that what I did was okay, and it doesn't mean what I did wasn't racist. It's really that simple of a concept, and I'm tired of you sheep-following robots telling me that, oh, it's my favorite writer, he's not racist and sexist, and, you're blah, 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 calling me all sorts of names because I called out a writer for being racist and sexist in his work. Doesn't mean that they are actually racist or sexist. It just means they did a racist or sexist thing. And I've done this with my favorite writers. I've called out my favorite writers for being racist or sexist or both, and I have no problem with that. It doesn't make them any less my favorite writers. It doesn't make me think they're racist. It doesn't make me think they're sexist. They're human. They made a mistake for the most part, or they followed tradition or conventions that happen to be racist and sexist. But I'm going to call them out. I'm going to say that it's wrong. I'm not this robot who's going to be like, oh, but he's my favorite author, he can do no wrong. And yes, I'm calling you out on it. And yes, you look stupid. And yes, I hate that. Can you stop being sheep? I mean, I don't care if you get mad at me. That's exactly what you look like. That's exactly what you're doing. You look like freaking sheep. And I don't know what to tell you. You're basically saying because you like someone that it's okay for them to do these wrong things, or you're going to choose to ignore the fact that they did something wrong just because they're your favorite. Now, I really don't care if you get mad at me because it's stupid. I don't need you around my channel if you're really that much of a robot. So that's that. That's what I mean when I discuss racism and sexism in my videos, because some of you guys get it so ass backwards that I don't know what to do with myself. So that's that. For the most part, most of you get it. I love you guys. You guys just, you're smart. I don't know what else to say. You guys get it, and I love you for that. But some people just really don't, and so I had to make this video. I just had to do it. So, thank you for your time. I know it's been a while since I've made a video, but here's one for you guys. Just been really, really busy. So, hopefully I'll talk to you guys again soon. Bye.